Why do nice people always lose? You've seen it happen. A genuinely kind person gets taken advantage of, overlooked, or outright ignored. Meanwhile, the ruthless, the manipulative, and even the selfish seem to climb higher, win more, and take everything for themselves. Is kindness really a weakness? Or is there something deeper going on? Something no one wants to talk about? Today, we're exposing the dark truth about why nice people keep losing, and how they can finally stop. Why nice people lose? Nice people grow up being told that if they're good, life will reward them. Be generous, be patient, be forgiving, and the world will return the favor. But reality doesn't work that way. In fact, the opposite often happens. Nice people tend to prioritize others over themselves. They avoid conflict, say yes too often, and rarely stand up for their own needs. And in a world that values strength and confidence, that can be a serious disadvantage. Think about the workplace. Who gets promoted? The person who always helps their colleagues and works late without complaining, or the person who demands recognition, negotiates their salary, and pushes for leadership roles? More often than not, it's the second one. Or relationships. How often do we see genuinely good-hearted people end up in toxic friendships or one-sided romantic relationships? They give and give, hoping others will appreciate them. But instead, they are taken for granted. Why? Because people naturally value what is scarce, not what is endlessly available. The truth is, the world doesn't operate on a moral point system. Being nice doesn't automatically guarantee success, happiness, or fulfillment. People who are too nice often assume that kindness alone will be enough to earn respect, love, and success. But in reality, without boundaries and strength, kindness can be seen as a tool for exploitation rather than a virtue to be admired. To understand why this happens, we need to look at human psychology. People respect those who set boundaries. They admire strength, assertiveness, and the ability to say no when someone is too accommodating. They are often perceived as weak, whether that's fair or not. In social dynamics, there is something called the dominance hierarchy. Every group, whether consciously or not, has leaders and followers. The people who assert themselves, speak confidently, and demand respect rise to the top. The ones who defer, hesitate, or try too hard to be liked, they sink to the bottom. This isn't just about personality, it's about survival instincts. From an evolutionary perspective, humans were never meant to prioritize kindness above all else. Our ancestors survived by forming strong alliances, showing power, and sometimes being ruthless when necessary. Those instincts still exist today. A crucial factor here is reciprocity bias, the psychological tendency to return favors. But what happens when you keep giving and others stop reciprocating? They get used to taking. They assume your generosity is endless. This is how nice people fall into a pattern of overgiving and under-receiving. Another psychological factor at play is the contrast principle. When something is always available, people take it for granted. Imagine walking past a street performer every day. At first, you're impressed. But over time, you stop paying attention. The same happens in relationships. When someone is consistently generous, their kindness stops being special. It becomes the norm. And once kindness becomes an expectation rather than a choice, appreciation fades. Additionally, there's status perception, the way people subconsciously judge worth and competence. Studies show that people instinctively respect those who assert dominance, even in subtle ways like body language, tone of voice, or confidence in decision-making. When someone is overly nice, they might unintentionally signal lower status, making others perceive them as less competent or influential, even if they're highly capable. And then there's the paradox of kindness. If you're too nice, people assume you have no other options. In social and romantic dynamics, scarcity increases value. If someone is selective with their kindness, Their approval feels earned. But when someone gives endlessly, people subconsciously wonder, why are they so desperate to please? This can lead to diminished respect and even resentment. The dark side of being too nice. Nice people often struggle with one major flaw. They expect the world to be fair. But fairness is a human concept, not a natural law. Nature doesn't reward kindness. It rewards strength, adaptability, and strategic thinking. When you are too nice, you invite exploitation. Manipulative people recognize kindness as an opportunity. They know that a nice person will hesitate to say no. They'll feel guilty standing up for themselves. And so the cycle continues. The nice person keeps giving, and the manipulative person keeps taking. Even worse, when nice people do finally stand up for themselves, they're often met with shock or resistance. Why? Because they've trained the people around them to expect endless generosity. The moment they set a boundary, they are accused of being selfish. But here's the truth. Self-respect is not selfishness. Additionally, there's the martyr complex, where nice people feel the need to sacrifice their own needs to prove their worth. They believe that if they suffer for others, they'll eventually be appreciated. But this rarely works. Instead of earning admiration, they often end up exhausted, disrespected, and unfulfilled. Another issue is learned helplessness, a psychological state where people believe they have no control over their circumstances because they have been conditioned to accept mistreatment. Nice people, especially those raised in environments that rewarded self-sacrifice, may develop a belief that standing up for themselves is pointless or will only lead to rejection. Then there's the empathy trap. When nice people become so attuned to others' feelings that they ignore their own, they excuse toxic behavior, thinking, maybe they're just having a bad day, or I don't want to hurt their feelings. But in doing so, they enable manipulation and let disrespect go unchecked. And let's not forget social conditioning. From childhood, many are taught that being nice is synonymous with being agreeable and compliant. Society praises kindness, but often fails to teach assertiveness. As a result, many nice people grow up with an unconscious fear of confrontation, believing that saying no will make them unlikable or unworthy. Ultimately, being too nice becomes a self-imposed prison. The more someone prioritizes pleasing others, the harder it becomes to escape the cycle. And the longer they wait to break free, the more difficult it is to reclaim their power. Breaking out of this pattern isn't easy. Nice people often feel guilty when they start setting boundaries. They worry that saying no will make them bad people. But this guilt is often misplaced. It's a conditioned response to years of believing that their worth is tied to how much they can do for others. This is known as guilt conditioning, a psychological pattern where people feel responsible for others' happiness at their own expense. Many nice people were raised to believe that prioritizing themselves is selfish, which makes breaking free from this mindset incredibly difficult. However, the truth is that taking care of your own needs isn't selfish. It's essential. Another challenge is that when a nice person finally starts asserting themselves, people around them might resist. Friends, family, and colleagues who were used to getting everything without pushback might react negatively. They might accuse the nice person of changing or being unfair. This is a test. It's a moment where the nice person has to decide. Will they continue to let others dictate their worth, or will they stand firm in their newfound strength? This resistance can be especially strong in close relationships. Some people thrive on imbalance. They've become accustomed to taking. And when that dynamic shifts, they feel threatened. In extreme cases, this can trigger manipulative guilt tripping, where the taker tries to make the nice person feel bad for standing up for themselves. They might say things like, "You've changed," or "You used to be so nice." But what they really mean is, "I can no longer control you like I used to." One reason this cycle is hard to break is identity attachment. Many nice people have built their entire self-worth around being the good one, the helper, the selfless friend. Changing this identity feels like a loss, even though it's actually a gain. The key is to reframe the narrative. Being strong and assertive doesn't mean abandoning kindness. It means upgrading it into something sustainable and respected. Breaking free from the cycle of niceness isn't about becoming harsh or unkind. It's about finding balance. True kindness, the kind that is respected rather than exploited, comes from a place of confidence and self-respect, not obligation and fear. Now, does this mean you should stop being nice? No, the world needs kindness, but kindness alone isn't enough. You need balance. You need strength with your kindness, confidence with your generosity, and boundaries with your empathy. Here's how to do it. 1. Stop seeking approval. If your kindness is based on the hope that others will like or reward you, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. Give because you choose to, not because you expect something in return. 2. Learn to say no. Every time you say yes to something you don't want, you're saying no to something you do want. Saying no isn't rude, it's necessary. 3. Set boundaries and enforce them. Boundaries show people how to treat you. If someone constantly takes advantage of your kindness, it's time to cut them off. Or make it clear that their behavior is unacceptable. 4. Respect yourself first. People take their cues from you. If you don't value your own time, energy, or emotions, why would anyone else? 5. Develop a strategic mindset. Being kind doesn't mean being naive. Observe how people treat you. Recognize patterns. If someone only comes to you when they need something, take note. Start surrounding yourself with people who give as much as they take. 6. Speak with confidence. The way you carry yourself matters. If you hesitate, mumble, or avoid eye contact, people subconsciously assume you lack confidence. Practice speaking with authority. You'll be amazed at how differently people respond. 7. Understand the power of scarcity. Don't make yourself too available. People respect what they have to earn. Make sure your kindness is given to those who truly appreciate it. Conclusion. The power of strong kindness. The real secret isn't about choosing between being nice or being strong. It's about mastering both. The most powerful people in history weren't just ruthless or kind. They were strategic. They knew when to be generous and when to be firm. So, if you feel like you've been losing because of your kindness, don't stop being kind. Just stop being only kind. Be strong, set boundaries, demand respect, because when you combine kindness with power, you don't just stop losing. You start winning in a way that actually matters.